I don't even really call it vulnerable. I just share truth. And my truth is not pretty, but I'll share it all. I will share it all. And many people would not share the things that I will share in the book or from the stage. And so, in a lot of ways, and then also to be at the level that I was, the negative level, or where I was, the penitentiary, being homeless on the streets, and I was homeless, not just a term couch surfing, but I was homeless for many, many years, and to be able to come to where I now own successful businesses and very successful in the most endeavors that I involve myself in. So the reason that it was called Becoming Ken is I was put with a lot of labels, and I wanted to be a kind and gentle man named Ken Miller and be comfortable with that. I didn't have to put on labels. I did not have to put on personas. I didn't have to put on a facsimile of me, depending on what audience I was speaking to. I am speaking to you, Ken, just like I speak to my mentees, just like I speak to my staff, just like I really speak to my wife. Maybe not as nice as I speak to my wife, but I'm close. It's close, okay? Yeah. And so the story is about becoming Ken, and we're talking about becoming the man that you see here today.
Mhm.
I am realized, it's a term we have. I'm realized, I'm actualized. I am who I wanted to be. I am very, very comfortable in my skin.
So I would say that someone who's, I had a conversation when I was only 12 or 13. He says, "Son, are you on drugs?" And I said, "No, I'm not." He goes, "Well, you act like it." I said, I really am not. He says, "Well, as an Army officer, I need to tell you, you're not going to do drugs under my roof." And I said, "But I want to know, I don't want to tell you that I'm not going to do it because I want to try them." He goes, "Why do you want to try them?" He says, I said, "Because I want to know if I like them." He says, "I can save you a very, very easy answer to that. You'll love them. You'll love them. There's a reason why people get consumed by them." And so he just had me make a simple promise, but I had to literally say the promise. And he says, "Okay, say these words. While you're under my roof, you will never try drugs." I said, "All right, I agree." And he goes, "No, say them." And I said those words. And he says, "Great. If you lie about this, I'll never trust you again." So I actually did not do drugs all the way to 22. But then at 22, I said, "Why would I?" Like there's that formidable years of 9 to like 21. You are either going to do it or not. And if you do it, you actually will, I think, fall into a, a level of traps. Hello, this is Dr. Smiley Show. And I want to say that if you see two people that look alike and have the same name, yes, it is true. So, Ken Miller, welcome to the show. I just want to say it's so cool to know someone that posts a photo of a book and has so much of a captivating picture and something behind the book and the message that I had to say, who is this person, Ken Miller? So, welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be on your show.
I I have to say that in meeting you, talking with you, I found there's so many layers that I wanted to bring you on a show before the show. So this is the show that actually says, "Wake up, America! This person's coming in. He's a speaker, an author. You're the first time author, right?"
Mhm. Yes.
And most times I talk to an author, they didn't write the book and they wanted to write the book for 25 years. You've been dealing and wanting to do this book for years. And so when is the release going to be of this book?
March next month.
Next month?
So within 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay.
Uh, today's date.
Today's date, really? Okay.
Yeah, today's date. Yeah.
So I'm breaking my rules. So my rules are I have to have someone on a show where I have their book in hand. I show that and I say, I at least read some of it and I love it. Or I tell them, you're not going to be on my show. so
Right.
So you do a lot of really, really cool, important things. But what I love about you most is your authenticity and your vulnerability is outrageously like, how could you be this way? So I wanted the audience to learn a little about you as a teaser, not the full fledged, but if you'll just share a little about who you are and why you wrote the book.
Well, my name is Ken Miller. I live in Bellingham, Washington. I'm 62 years old. As of this morning, I weighed 198 pounds. I like starting off with the facts.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that are truth. Everything else, I always tell people, is an interpretation of my past. But my interpretation is that I was a foster child for 6 years, grew up upstate New York, moved to Alaska when I was 12, And I was precocious as a student. I went to Dartmouth College, got my degree from Dartmouth. Unfortunately, I graduated with some difficulty with substances and was an alcoholic and a drug addict. And within 3 years of my graduation from Dartmouth, I spent 20 years on the streets. I am a three-time convicted felon. But today, I celebrate over 20 years of being clean and sober. I own 5 businesses. I'm very successful in my businesses. I'm married. I have a beautiful wife and a beautiful family, and I have a beautiful life, a beautiful life. You're Dr. Smiley. I'm just Mr. Gratitude Ken.
Yeah, and by the way, I love the fact you already put author in your title because that's who you are. Do you by any chance have a picture of the book you could show?
Yes, I do. I don't yes, I can. Just give me 1 second.
Yeah, if you have it handy, and by the way, while you're
And
doing that,
can I put it in the chat? Will
uh,
that work?
yeah, you can do it in chat. I'll pop it up,
Okay.
and then actually, I can also have you share screen because this is more of an impromptu,
Okay.
and so I'm going to have you share screen. I want you to show it.
Okay.
So you are now a co-host. Go for it. Show it.
All right. Let's share screen. Let's bring it up. And here it is.
And
That is the cover of our book,
yes,
Becoming.
and I know my audience is going to laugh right now because obviously, becoming Ken, I said that should have been my book, my title.
Ha, 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 ha. I love it. I love it.
So,
Yeah.
would you share real quickly why that title and also the when you started this book?
Well, I started the book 3 years ago, and people have been telling me, you need to write a book. You need to write a book. Because again, the unique aspect, or really there's two unique aspects. One is
And you
going
can
from the
stop sharing.
IB.
You can stop sharing screen. I want to
Oh,
see.
okay. Okay. The unique aspect is I went to the Ivy Leagues as a young black man, 17 years old, and what that entailed to be able to go there from a background of foster homes and all the other things. And then the other unique aspect is, like you say, my ability or willingness to be vulnerable. I don't even really call it vulnerable. I just share truth. And my truth is not pretty, but I'll share it all. I will share it all. And many people would not share the things that I will share in the book or from the stage. And so, in a lot of ways, and then also to be at the level that I was, the negative level, or where I was, the penitentiary, being homeless on the streets. And I was homeless, not just a term couch surfing, but I was homeless for many, many years. And to be able to come to where I now own successful businesses and very successful in most endeavors that I involve myself in. So the reason that it was called Becoming Ken is I was put with a lot of labels. You know, even when I was a child, I knew that I was a foster child. That was a label. I knew I had a label that I was given a name that wasn't really quote unquote my name, even though I had the paperwork on the adoption papers, but that wasn't my original name. And then I was given
What do you
names.
mean by that? What do you mean by that?
Well, my biological was Horn. And even when I was a child, I always tell the story that I used to tell people, my name is Kenneth John Horn Turley Miller. And Turley's were the last foster home I had. Miller's adopted me. Horn, I should never have known, but I knew that name somehow because I was the woman that put me up for adoption 6 years before. Her name was Joanne Horn. That was my
Can I interject?
biological.
Can I interject
So,
one more question? Can I
yes,
interject?
of course.
So, would you say that your lack of truth to your identity caused you the confusion to escape it a little bit?
No,
No. Okay.
no, I'm not a big believer on antecedents as to why I became an addict. I believe that's biological. That's my opinion.
Mhm.
Some people would differ on that. I had a lot of trauma as a child. My father shot my mom 6 times. I mean, there's things that you'll read in the book.
Yeah.
So I dealt with things, but doesn't mean that that makes you into a crack addict. Doesn't mean that makes you into an alcoholic. You know, my father hadn't shot my mom before I became an alcoholic. Okay, that was after I became an alcoholic. So I'm not a big one on antecedents.
Okay.
Okay, just the way I metabolize alcohol or how I deal with, I don't have the shut off switch. I've changed from crack cocaine to Haagen-Dazs butter pecan ice cream. If you put a pint of Haagen-Dazs butter pecan in front of me, I will probably eat the whole pint. I don't really have that shut off switch when I have something that's pleasurable. Okay? So that's very prevalent. So I don't buy that ice cream often because I will eat it all the time. So anyway, so those again some of the things that make my story unique. But again, so then I was given a label, Ivy Leaguer. Okay, I was given a label that I was going to be the man as a black individual in Alaska. There was a lot of people thought that, and my goal was to be a senator. That was my goal as a child.
Hmm.
I want to be a senator. Okay, I
Well,
didn't say
why did you pick that?
because there was a politician that was a high level politician, and I always like to talk. So, and I like politics,
Right.
and so I thought I'd be, the first black senator from Alaska. Okay, and then I was given a term addict. I was given a term alcoholic. I was given a term ex-con. Okay, I'm a three-time convicted felon. I've spent years behind bars. And so when I got out of prison the last time, I had to really go inside. Who am I? And who do you want to be? And I wanted to be a kind and gentle man named Ken Miller and be comfortable with that. I didn't have to put on labels. I did not have to put on personas. I didn't have to put on a facsimile of me, depending on what audience I was speaking to. I am speaking to you, Ken, just like I speak to my mentees, just like I speak to my staff, just like I really speak to my wife. Maybe not as nice as I speak to my wife, but I'm close. It's close, okay? Yeah. And so the story is about becoming Ken, and we're talking about becoming the man that you see here today.
Mm-hmm.
I am realized. It's a term we have. I'm realized. I'm actualized. I am who I wanted to be. I am very, very comfortable in my skin.
So I would say that someone who's super comfortable, if not completely congruent or harmonious with their skin, has absolutely no issue in the truth of their past because that past does not reflect who they are in the future or in the present.
True, but I also respect people that I don't only use the word harbor secrets, but for different reasons do not share information. So there's two different things that we look at when we share information.
Right.
Number one, is it going to be a harm to my self-esteem? There's nothing you can say to me, Ken, that would harm my self-esteem, period. In the story. Nothing that anybody else could say.
I'm clear.
But I also understand that I have external individuals to me that may not want certain information put out that I know. So that remains with me. There's things that I've seen or done or experienced that I'm not going to share because it has nothing to do with you knowing what that person did.
Right.
But if it's about me, yeah, I'll share from the stage. And I'm not shy.
Yeah, I guess my main point from a logical standpoint is if you've severed yourself from a past person you don't like, and you've severed, I mean, they're completely severed, you can actually identify them as a past person.
Right. And sometimes I had to, reread my whole book, like 190 pages, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I reread it, and I'm like, it was hard to remember that was the guy because I'd worked with a ghostwriter 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And some of the stories they're not in my conscious because they're not really positive stories. There's a lot of stuff that's not in the book. We didn't have enough. He said there's another 2 books.
That's for the movie.
Yeah, we'll save it for movie. But because of that, I don't bring up negative unless it's for a positive good. I will share this story because I believe that there will be a payoff at the end positively for the audience or the individual that I'm speaking to.
Do you think your book is potentially a story for a movie?
Yes. I've had too many people tell me that.
I 100% agree. Who would you want to play you?
I don't know because it depends on what age.
Yeah, well, of course
you want to play me at 62.
Yeah. Would you play yourself?
Yeah, I was in a movie. I
Yeah.
was in a
Okay.
movie. Yeah, I was
I
definitely in
don't
a
know.
movie.
I see Samuel Jackson a little bit with you.
Yeah, but he's too old. Because
Okay.
remember, a lot of the stories is about my 20s and 30s. The
Gotcha.
prison is 30s and 40s. There's incidents. There was incidents at six. Yeah, you have these pivot moments, or
Hmm.
what I call profound, sublime moments. And let's just say, we'll just take the top five. So there probably would have to be two or three actors. One, I would say 17 to maybe 25, 30. One 30 to maybe till I got out of prison. And that was almost 20 years ago, 18
That would be
years ago.
me. I would play that one. I'd play.
Right. And
Yeah.
then there's the older one, the individual who I am today, and the one that's giving back.
So because this show's a little more of a teaser, I don't want to let the whole cat
Mhm.
out of the bag because we are doing a show when I have book in hand. I say I've read
Mhm.
this and it's amazing. Um, I want to ask you a question that I guess I don't know if anyone else is thinking this when they're in the audience, but you go to do time three times,
Mhm.
and the question I have hit me is why'd it have to be three times? What was the difference in the first, the second, and the third that said the first says I'm coming back, the second says I'm coming back, the third says I'm not coming back because I got it. So tell me about that.
So the first two times I went in, I mainly wanted to be a better drug dealer. And I learned a lot.
Yeah.
It didn't matter. First of all, there's no such thing as a better drug dealer or a good drug dealer. We're dealing destruction.
Mhm.
And because it's just a chemical that changes a person's perception of reality.
Right.
And under the drug or in pursuit of the drug, we do a lot of things that are inimical to the community's well-being, period. And I can articulate that well.
I bet.
And but when I went in the first time, the second time I'm listening, and I got out and I thought, I would do drug dealing better and or be a better criminal, whatever it may be. But it doesn't matter because I'm a drug addict that did crimes.
Mhm.
And so again, your own best customer. The third time I went in there and I was ready to change. There was some fear involved because the judge had told me I was up for the habitual criminal statute, which would have been 25 to life. And I didn't like that number at all. And so I had motivation there, but I was just really, the main motivation is I had a conversation with God and I listened and I prayed and I was willing and, real important, did the work to change, to become kin,
Hmm.
to literally become kin. That's where I started the journey to become. And I didn't do it all in prison. I was in prison for the last time for 3 years. And then it took me probably another 3 to 4 years to get to probably 95, 97% of where I'm at today. And then the last 10, 15 years, it's just the icing on the cake.
So I could have been becoming Ken just like you. And
Mm-hmm.
I say this from a standpoint that any human can.
Mm-hmm.
Any human that thinks that they are infallible or superior to what it is to ingest or take some type of drug that will change their reality that's addictive, they will lose themselves. And I say this from a standpoint that my dad and I had a conversation when I was only 12 or 13. He says, "Son, are you on drugs?" And I said, "No, I'm not." He goes, "Well, you act like it." I said, I really am not. He says, "Well, as an Army officer, I need to tell you, you're not going to do drugs under my roof." And I said, "But I want to know. I don't want to tell you that I'm not going to do it because I want to try them." He goes, "Why do you want to try them?" He says, I said, "Because I want to know if I like them." He says, "I can save you a very, very easy answer to that. You'll love them. You'll love them. There's a reason why people get consumed by them." And so he just had me make a simple promise, but I had to literally say the promise. And he says, "Okay, say these words. While you're under my roof, you will never try drugs." I said, "All right, I agree." And he goes, "No, say them." And I said those words. And he says, "Great. If you lie about this, I'll never trust you again." So I actually did not do drugs all the way to 22. But then at 22, I said, "Why would I?" Like there's that formidable years of 9 to like 21. You are either going to do it or not. And if you do it, you actually will, I think, fall into a, a level of traps, a level of traps. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but
You know
there's a
what I-
reason why we do it. And the reason I drank, I was in a fraternity. That's what we do in college. We
right,
drink.
right.
You have to make a real conscious decision that you'll never drink, to not drink in college, at least the colleges I went to. Remember, I went to Ivy League, I went to Dartmouth. In
Yes.
my fraternity, there were 60 brothers. 59 I did cocaine with. Remember, cocaine, this is the early 80s.
Yeah, yeah,
Cocaine
yeah.
was not addictive back in those days. This is before Belushi
So
and
about what
Lenny
about this?
Dyke.
What about the 60th one? Why didn't you do it with that one part?
Because he didn't do, he chose not to do
Can I interject right now?
cocaine.
Because this is the
Huh?
part. This can I interject? Because this is the part that blows
Sure, sure.
this
Yeah, just
blows
one
me
guy.
away. Well, this blows me away about my dad's gift that he gave me. So he gave me one gift of I had to make a promise to actually wait. But the bigger gift was that you would not believe this, Ken. I promise this is the truth. Any friend of mine that was doing drugs, and most of them were, just like you said, 59 or 60. Okay. Most of my friends were doing drugs. And they said, hey, I got some extra weed. You want to join? And I said, hey, I promised my dad I wouldn't do drugs until I get out of the house. And they actually would say this. They would say, okay, cool. Like that was it.
Right.
It was the weirdest thing that I actually got the buy of I don't have to do it because I actually have a reason.
Which is fine. I mean, but I want to make sure that the listener hears this. Drugs and alcohol was not my predominant problem, especially once I cleaned up.
Right.
I had a problem with Ken. I had a problem with Ken's interpretation of his past, Ken's ability to accept who he was and what he did, Ken's ability to make amends to those he had harmed, Ken's ability to look in the mirror and love the person he saw.
Mm,
I mean, I went through almost 20, 30 years of not liking me. When you wake up and you don't like yourself, that's a terrible place to be.
right.
I love me today. I'm good people. And there's many people who would co-sign on that.
Well,
There are a few that wouldn't, but many people would.
I want to shift in that good side because we don't want the teaser to all be the
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, no, I'm not saying over. Remember,
Yes.
190 pages. Believe
So
me, there's some more in there.
yeah, so there's a lot of good. So I want to talk about why you're on the show. I want to talk about
Mhm,
why I believe in you, why I'm eager to support anything you're doing because of who you are. That's what I want to talk about right now. So
mhm,
I started the show off pre-show and I just said, hey, I went to this school yesterday and I was the 34th presenter because of Dr. Tommy Thomas. And I just want to, I think I showed you in the precursor of the show who this gentleman was, but there's you, Ken, by the way.
yes, it is me.
And then here is Tommy Thompson. And this is what I hope to be doing, staying next to you, my bald brother. And just this man got me in this event with all these amazing people. And I mean, look at all these people I couldn't know if it wasn't for him. Like it's that simple. And so I want to say this to you is you are a person I believe in. And when I said I went to this school, you know more about the school and the person that created the school than I do. Would you care to share? You read a lot of books. I mean, first of all, I want to acknowledge you have such a book collection that we had talked about you doing a 50 book challenge. You said, no, 100 book would be the minimum I do of a challenge for the people that I mentor.
Mhm.
So this is a threefold question. One, why is reading so important? Two, who is this gentleman and why is he important? And three, your mentorship program. So go crazy with that.
Why is reading so important? It uses a part of the brain that has to take in and interpret words on paper, if we're reading on paper or reading on the screen, and interpret that information to literally paint a picture in your brain. It utilizes the cognitive part of your brain.
Hmm.
And it also can take you places you've never been. And it can also allow you to think more. So I predominantly read 95%, 98% of the time nonfiction. Richard Wright was a fiction writer, but I had to
Before you
take
go to
him.
Richard Wright,
Yeah, yeah.
how many books do you like to read a week or a month or a year?
Which I, which my record, I'll go with the record. 1 month I read 130 books, which is like three a day. That was my record. I was in the penitentiary though.
Okay.
and there were a lot of Dean Koontz. Okay,
Yeah.
don't take long because they didn't have a large library. Believe that. I don't know why, but they didn't. And I had to read what was there. So that's my record. But
But
in
do you relate to the Shawshank
but
Redemption, the guy who brought that library together for them?
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, the fact that he thought that this was the way to go is bring the book to the penitentiary so that they can
Mhm.
actually open their
And
mind.
I'm glad they have them. And
Yeah.
I read a lot. I read hundreds of books while I was in the penitentiary.
All right. And now
Um,
the good old Richard Wright. Here we go.
yeah,
You
Richard Wright. Yeah, he's an author, black, 30s, 40s, died in 1960. He's most famous for Native Son. I believe he wrote a book called Black Boy also. And the reason that is it's weird when you brought that up. I haven't thought about him in 30, 40 years. But I remember the protagonist. I believe his name was Bigger Thomas. And he was a protagonist. And what is real interesting about that book is that the protagonist kills a white man, I believe in Chicago. And it was an employer or something to that effect. And someone who's listening would probably know, no, you're wrong there. But this is how I remember from 40 years ago. Remember, this is an interpretation.
right.
And anyway, it was a very
Spontaneous
well
and
received
spontaneous.
book, very well received book. It's coming back more and more about him in my head. But, the thing was, he was, you could have been a really in like two, and it's weird how they make people compete. So the two biggest black authors at the time were Richard Wright and Ralph Ellison, Invisible Man.
Hmm.
And so at times there was this conflict of who was the better black author. Why can't we just who's the better author, or can they both be great authors? But Richard Wright was phenomenal, and so any school that's founded under his either principles and or beliefs, I'm all for. So that's two questions. What was the third one? Oh, my mentoring.
Yeah, you're mentoring. And before you go to mentoring, I just want
Yeah,
to give a little just this is
yep, that's him.
yeah. And I just can't say enough about the event. It's just the amount of people you meet, and it was his vision that caused a school that attracted future leaders. There's just so many
Love
ripple
it.
effects to it.
Love it.
And
Love
by
it.
the way, the movie I recommended to you, I'm putting you on the spot a little bit, but did you check
I
it out?
got it. I got it downloaded. So
Good,
we're
good,
getting
good.
close.
And by the way, guess what? When you do the big show and I have book in hand, you have movie in hand. But that movie reminds me so much about what you're about to share, which is the belief in mentorship and the belief in belief. In other words, if you have one person that believes in you, it changes the trajectory that you have to be accountable for that one person because they believed in you. They gave you their soul in essence.
Right. Because a lot of times you'll believe in them before they'll believe in themselves.
Right.
And so one of the things that I do, and we've talked about this, my passion outside of my wife and my God is mentoring young black men, period. Period.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been doing it for 15 years. I've worked with a lot of young men. It's free. And I always say, what is the tagline? My job is to engender dreams. That's what I do. I engender dreams. And so I've had the joy and the pleasure and the outcomes, to have a grown black man sitting across from you with tears in his eyes because his dream came true.
Mm.
Took 3 years, took 5 years. I can't tell you what that kind of satisfaction is. And
I
I tell him, I don't need anything from you other than your growth,
mm.
your grind to get to this dream. And we've talked about that. I just want to say it one more time, but when I first sit down with them, first thing, I say to them is, what is your dream? And I tell them, I give you permission to dream because so many black men and other people of other colors and persuasions and backgrounds have internalized a message that you're not allowed to dream,
Mm.
not allowed to dream. And then I shut up. I drink my coffee, eat my food, or if we're on Zoom, I do my Zoom. I say, take your time. What you drink?
Hmm.
And then we begin the process. My, I've been with my oldest guy for 15 years.
How many,
15 years.
how many have you served?
How many have I mentored or served? At one time, I was mentoring 29 men, but it was too much. Honestly, it was too much
Right.
physically because I have given them
You're
all.
building future mentors.
Yes. Oh yeah, I have level. I have a group called Pass It On. I have 4 levels, not four. It's 4 groups of Black men mentoring Black men. There's a group ahead of me. I have 2 Black mentors. They mentor me. I mentor a group, and then they're
You want to share
mentoring.
who they are? Your choice.
Yeah, yeah. I can share that. Alphonse Brown Jr. and Jim Posey are my mentors.
And the program is called again.
Pass it on.
And people hearing this, if they know someone they can introduce, they can bring them in or not.
No,
Okay.
no,
So
no. But let me explain that.
yeah.
So I only have so much capacity.
Well, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the programs.
Yeah, well, the program itself. So what I ended up doing for the first time, I started in January. I began a Black men's book study
Hmm.
and discussion group, which is going phenomenal. And I'm looking to expand that in the future because what it allowed me to do is to talk to 24 men at a time, but we're also doing the 6 pillars of self-esteem as a book study, chapter by chapter, which is phenomenal.
Yes.
And that's why I'm speaking. That's why I wrote the book. It wasn't for me, it wasn't because everybody told me. I wrote the book so I can touch more people, especially of color, and hopefully create something that there are Black men assisting Black men or men of color, Hispanic men assisting. And and apologize to anyone, but I stay in the men, in the male, because I know the need. I was locked up with them.
Mm.
I know the need in
Yep.
the Black male community.
So I have two, I think, phenomenal connections for you out of this. So Donnie Glover is moving Baltimore. He's with Be More News, and he's a sponsored media person in Baltimore. Love him to death. And then in Rochester, New York, I have a gentleman, Dr. Paul Miller. I'm going to connect you to those two people because
Beautiful.
they say similar things in the show that you said. So
Okay.
that would be a solid connection.
Yeah, I'm not original.
Well,
Okay. I
my
mean, I
my
am.
point.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was
Go
just
ahead.
going to say, my point is when you bring people together that have similar visions, it synergistically multiplies at a level that can't be.
Sure, for sure. 100 Black men. Who's ever doing it, I'm all for them. Anything I can do to assist, or anything you can do to assist me getting my message out in front of more.
Mm-hmm.
Because what I would love to do is have an army of Black men helping Black men, mentoring.
Right.
But you got to understand, and we can talk about this at another time, but you got to understand what mentoring is. A lot of people don't know how to mentor. I'll be
Right.
honest with you. They don't know how to mentor. It's not just being a friend. One of the things is I do not co-sign on bad behavior.
Right.
If you indicate that, let's talk about this behavior. And let's talk about the repercussions for you and others, especially your loved ones, if we continue to engage in this behavior. So remember, I'm really frank. The beautiful thing about me being a mentor is I don't care if you like me. All my mentees, I just try to know, like me. And remember, this is the other thing. I had to learn how to say I love you to another Black man.
Hmm.
I love you. And I do it. And my guys say it back, almost all my guys say it. But there's a trust involved to say that.
Right.
But when you're working with 10, 15, 12, 6, 5 years with the same gentleman and you're there for them, it's easy to say, I love you.
Yeah.
Feel love, that brotherly love. So that's what we do.
Well, I look forward to our next show. And by the way, given that I'll put this in a manifestation, not a pressure piece.
Mhm.
Manifestation is I want to represent anything I can possibly do that has to do with your 100 book challenge or your principles of each of your words that you want to turn into books. When I heard you say all these books, I said, I know how to do not just lots of books. I know how those books turn into a campaign that would cause you to have the impact I know you want. So I'm just very grateful to know you. And the more I get to know you, the more I get to see it is a very big gift that is a manifestation of prayer that's being answered. So I want to end the call with 5 questions. Those 5 questions are really quick. I ask them, you answer them, and then we're off. And then the next show we have, I'll have book in hand, and I will make sure that I don't do the show before you watch the movie. All right. So here are the 5 questions. Question 1: what book changed your life?
Psychology of Self-Esteem.
Okay. And by the way, when we have you for the next show, you can pick a second or third, whatever you want. Movie that inspires you.
Gladiator.
Okay. Song that gets you going.
One Nation Under a Groove.
That is a good
Funkadelic.
E-Funk. Oh, I know. E-Funk. Come on.
1976.
I know. And your hero.
My mother.
And the quote you live by.
Oh, I have one. Only one. In the end, you will do what you want to do bad enough. Period.
I love that. We'll talk offline about a quote that I got from somebody very much like you. That is so cool. I don't know if I can connect you to her, but she's amazing. So you're on the Dr. Smiley Show, and I got to say, if you don't know Ken Miller, you want to follow him. How do people reach out and connect with you?
Probably the best is LinkedIn. Ken Miller, 84.
Is it?
Miller, 84.
I decided to play big on LinkedIn only about a year ago. I mean, I'm not a young buck, and I decided to play big. 14,000 people connected, and I see your post, and it just riveted me. I mean, seriously, I don't
Wow.
I don't chase. I at most I do a connection. I just see where it goes. But with you, I was like, I'm chasing. I want to see what this guy's about because it's such a beautiful cover. By the way, I just want to compliment you. That cover is strong. The coloring, who you are being in the moment of that photo is so important. People don't realize if they throw a photo up, if they're not being in the moment of love or gratitude or something that they want to embody for that cover for it to be read from the reader, it gets lost. There's a lot of translation loss. So the photographer nailed it, and
Awesome.
you nailed it with who you were being, but they nailed it with capturing who you're being. So thank you so much, Ken, for the time. I look forward to doing anything I can to support you. I believe in you, and I thought I just liked you because you were bald and you had a great name, but I like you for so much more.
Thank you.
So
I very appreciate it.
have a great day, and we'll see you in about a month around the time your book is launching.
Awesome.
Thanks.